And hello, everybody. How's it going? Sorry, just like looking off into the distance there. Hello, and welcome to our review of the Avatar Legends role-playing game Quick Start Guide. Here we're going to take a look at the Quick Start Guide together and answer a few questions if you have any. First and foremost, I'd love to thank Magpie for giving me the opportunity to take a look and play this. I am a CPP GM, so I have been playing this for some time in many different iterations of the system, and it has only been improving. And it's really only been improving because of the hard work that the developers at Magpie have done, as well as the wonderful play testers that have joined us through our CPP program. One of the very cool things that I like to suggest to people, just to see how much work has been done in this system, is to check out the change log that you'll find on page 2 of the Quick Start Guide, so you can see just how much work has been going into sharpening and refining this game before we got into our Kickstarter. There have been ups and downs with going through the systems. There have been changes that have been slight, that have been drastic, and I am very excited to present to you what we've learned throughout this process. It has been an amazing adventure, but maybe not as amazing as the adventures that you and your friends are going to be able to tell in the world of Avatar thanks to this system. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start at the best place to start when you do anything. The table of contents, page 2 on the Quick Start Guide, so we can just get an idea of what's inside. This book, it's been designed for people that are familiar with TTRPGs, with people that aren't familiar with TTRPGs, for people that just love Avatar, or people that don't really know anything about the Avatar universe. It's a wonderful jumping in point for everyone. This Quick Start Guide especially takes the time to really hold your hand and take you through the process of setting up a story in the world of Avatar, giving you the general knowledge that you'll need to be able to tell these stories, and the freedom to take what we know about established lore and play with it. One of the most fun most fun moments that I ever had playtesting this system was I was running a story in the 100-Year War era. Now, if you aren't familiar with Avatar: The Last Airbender, the 100-Year War era is when Aang, our titular character of the first show, went missing. And for 100 years, there was no Avatar, and the Fire Nation wiped out all of the Airbenders, which I had a player that wanted to play an Airbender, but because of the era we were in, felt that they couldn't. And one of the key things to remember with this game and with this system is that your imagination is key. You can tell any type of story you want here. Don't feel limited by your, don't feel limited. And this system does a wonderful job of encouraging that mindset. All right, so the first thing that we're going to start with is the world of Avatar Legends. It's just going to take us through the different eras. It's going to give you a basic synopsis of what to expect during each era. Where were the tensions? What are some major notes to know about each era? For example, it's kind of important that you know during the 100-Year War era that there was no Avatar, that the Avatar went missing. That's gonna be important. Basically, everybody in the world knows that fact, right? So it would be kind of strange to tell your story without that little bit of tidbit, without that little bit of knowledge in there. And this is again where the system, where this quick start really shines and taking you through that. Again, we're not making you go through a intensive lore course, but we are helping you get familiar um, uh, with the I can English, I promise. With this, it's also going to get you familiar with some of the key figures in the Avatar lore. It's going to show you the different avatars. We've got my favorite, Kyoshi, in the Kyoshi era. And we've got, Roku, who's okay if you're into that sort of thing. Then we have the 100-Year War era. And next we have Aang's era, and that's including the time from the show and into the comic books, which ultimately then lead us into Korra. It also takes you through the 4 nations, because that's going to be hugely important for you to know. You've got your Fire Nation, you've got your Water Tribe, you've got your Earth Kingdom, and your Air Nomads. And it's going to tell you a little bit about the cultures of each one. Each nation has different things that motivate them, traditions that they adhere to. And this system, or this guide rather, is going to take you through all of that. And it's a fun read, honestly. Now, I know that reading through like quick start guides and lore can be a little much sometimes, but this has been one of the most fun quick start guides I've ever had the experience of reading. Now, albeit I'm a bit biased, I am an Avatar fan. I love Avatar, but this was really insightful for even someone that already comes in with a little bit of knowledge about the world. There are little things that if you are a veteran to the world of Avatar, you'll pick up, and if you're completely new, this is a wonderful way to enter the world. And it might even inspire you to watch the cartoon a couple of times. Maybe too many times. I'm on my 7th run through of the first series. I might have a problem. Anyway, that's not important. What is important is that not only do they take you through the nations, but they take you through the eras. Let's take a quick look at an example of that. So here we have playing through the eras, and it's telling us about Kyoshi's era. It covers the events after the Shadow of Kyoshi novel, and you play in Kyoshi's era if you want to fight in battles against rogues and bandits and deal with corruption as the nations defend and reinforce their borders. So like I said, just a nice, quick, concise little summary about when you're playing and what are the benefits of playing that time period. Again, I have told quite a few stories in the Kyoshi era, and it is fun to just be able to just have some bandits show up. The Dao Fei and the Stone Fist popping up doing some bad bandit stuff. You don't have to get too deep into the lore. You just have to point your players at a town and have them stop it. It's awesome. Here, they also take you through, the mindset of being a player in the game as well as being a GM in this system. Now, this is the most important part. This system runs using Powered by the Apocalypse. We're going to get more into the minutia of the system, but if you are familiar with Powered by the Apocalypse, then you generally have a firm understanding of how this system works. And it's hugely beneficial because having something like spell slots or energy points or anything like that would be very restricting in the world of Avatar, because bending is a part of who the benders are. It's a part of them. It's an extinction. There is really no limit to the amount of times that they can do it. What does limit them are their emotions, their balance. We'll get more into that later, but remember that. Now, let's say you want to start the game. Well, luckily there's a page called Starting Play, and it's going to tell you everything that you need to get started. And this is extremely helpful for brand new GMs. If you haven't GM'd before and you're just like, I don't know how to do this, Don't worry, because this quick start guide's got your back. First, you're gonna choose your scope. Are we going all over the world, or are we gonna stick to the Earth Kingdom? Or are we gonna stick to just a small town in the Earth Kingdom? Where are we going with the story? Well, Quick Start Guide's gonna give you a few examples of what the different scopes look like, and after reading, you can go on and choose the one that best suits you, the one that's more comfortable. An all bossing say campaign. That would be fun, but I don't know why you'd want to do that, because there is no war in bossing say. Anyway, next we have choosing a group focus. Now this has been one of my favorite things. It's on the next page here. I'm not gonna lie to you, this is just a great overall GMing tool. This is a fantastic tool that I have definitely taken hold of and just use everywhere, because this is universal for all storytelling. What is the point of your group getting together? What is the point of your story? That's a great place to start for any GM telling any story. So the Quick Start Guide takes you through that. Is it to defeat a villain? Is it to protect a place, idea, culture, person, or thing? Is it to change a culture, society, place, or person? Is it to deliver a person, thing to a place, culture, or a person? To rescue a person or a thing, or to learn an idea, culture, training, or history? And it doesn't have to be just one of these things. It could be multiple. But you have to start off with a focus to tell the story, okay? So that's what this portion helps you with. And then they go so far as to help you outline your entire session. You've got your Act 1, your Act 2, and your Act 3. Now, for all my new GMs out there, I do need to warn you that things are not going to go completely as you plan in your outline. But your outline is going to be sort of like your center. When things go off the wall and you need to bring them back, you can use your outline to kind of pull them back into where you need the story to go. And that's what this part of the Quick Start Guide is all about. It's about helping you realize that this is a joint story effort, and to help you get that story in focus. Wonderful tool. This is probably one of my favorite parts of the Quick Start Guide, and one that I highly recommend new GMs read over and over and over again. But that's enough gushing about the mechanics of storytelling. Let's move on to character creation, because that's what we're all here for. We have watched Avatar enough, and now I want to knuckle up and punch people with fire uppercuts. Here's how we're gonna do it. First off, you start with a concept in mind. Have a character idea. Do you want to be a fun-loving brute? Do you want to be a silent, brooding, butt kicker? Who do you want to be? Once you have that general concept in mind, go ahead and review the playbooks that Magpie and this system have provided for you, because playbooks have unique features and unique themes that should help you get to the character concept that you have in mind. How about we take a quick look into the playbooks that we have, right? Well, first we have the Bold. And as a quick aside, I will never forgive Magpie for not naming it the Boulder. Yes, there will be tons of corny Avatar jokes throughout this process. I'm not sorry, you signed up for this. So, who is the Bold? Well, the Bold the Bolds fight to live up to their self-image and earn others' trust and confidence. Play the Bold if you want to build your reputation and your leadership skills. So if you want to be front of the pack, the Bold is where it's at. I like to call them the Bet You Won't class, because part of their mechanics is doing something bold every session. You start off each session basically choosing some risky things. Maybe petting a fantastic beast, standing up to somebody in power, or kissing somebody dangerous. Who knows? But these are the things that the Bold does. Next, we have the Guardian. Guardians defend someone close to them, steadfast and watchful, and you're going to play the Guardian if you want to be the first to see danger coming and the last line of defense. The Guardian is a wonderful playbook to play if you find yourself being the party parent. um, uh, One of their key mechanics is that they start off with a ward, and they protect that person, and they get a few cool abilities in order to do that. But if they fail to protect that person, well, things could get a little rough. It's a wonderful playbook to play, highly recommended. My favorite is the Hammer. The Hammer is a strong, tough, and always looking for somebody that deserves to get punched in the face. So you're going to want to play the Hammer if you want to grapple with forces that can handle, if you want to solve problems with force instead of talking. Honestly, that's my favorite playbook because sometimes you just want to punch people in the face. Next is the Icon. The Icon comes from an ancient tradition and inherited some standards to live up to. You're going to play the Icon if you want to be torn between your heart and your destiny. This is very much the responsibility over freedom playbook. It's very fun to play if you get into that kind of emotional storytelling. And there are many more, but these are just a few of the playbooks that you have. And I really recommend going in depth and really getting a feel for all of them because they're going to be key to you making that character concept that you've always dreamed of in terms of being in the world of Avatar come to fruition. So now that we've got our playbook, what else are we going to look into? Glad you asked. Next, we have training. So what is training exactly? Well, training is how your character defends themselves, how they define themselves. Are you a firebender? Are you an airbender, waterbender, earthbender? Do you use technologies or do you use weapons? These are your trainings. This is how you're going to help your party in and out of combat. I can't tell you enough how it really comes down to your creativity in terms of really bringing these trainings to life. I have had players really throw me for a loop when it comes to like technology. I've had people make, smoke bombs, grenades. I've had people basically make like gadgeteers that are going toe-to-toe with benders. It was just the time of my life seeing people realize that this is a system that wants you to be the most you possible. There is no set skill for your bending or your abilities. It's all your imagination. It's joint storytelling in its purest form, and I really can't wait for you to get your hands on this. So now you've got your playbook, you've got your training. What else is there? Well, next we have your background. You're going to go ahead and pick 2 backgrounds, okay? And I want you to think of like, let's take a look at Zuko. Zuko would be military and privileged. Easy, right? He comes from a privileged background and he spent most of his life in the military. That's the background that he comes from. So really go ahead and give these backgrounds a look and see what fits your character's background the best. It's going to be extraordinarily helpful during the character creation process because much like many other Powered by the Apocalypse games, there is a built-in mechanic during character creation that will tether you and tie you to your party members. And so descriptions like background and the upcoming Demeanor, which we'll talk about in just a second, will really help your fellow players get an idea of the character that you're trying to create. And that'll help them foster the relationship with that character even quicker. Really can't compliment this system enough for helping bringing characters to life and helping explain it to other people to foster relationships and telling stories. So, I was already talking about Demeanors. Let's get into it. What demeanor does your character have? Every playbook has 6 demeanors, ways your character might behave in a social situation or when they're under pressure. So you're gonna go ahead and choose one or make up one of your own if your vision of the character isn't covered by the playbook. Also, write down a line or two about what your character looks like. So really, this is just helping people get an idea of who you are, what you look like, and how you act when the heat is on. Further pushing that, we have the history questions. I don't know about you, but I'm a huge backstory buff, and we have a space on the playbooks for you to go ahead and write your backstory so that your GM has a place to reference it, and everybody can kind of take a look at your history and your backstory and go, ooh, that's cool. I mean, I hope they respond a bit more enthusiastic than that, but that's what you're getting from me. Ooh, that's cool. All right. So next is my favorite part of the playbooks, connections. These are questions that have to do with connecting the player characters together. We'll come back to this when we actually take a look at a playbook, but each playbook has unique connection questions, and they're really fun once you've gone ahead and, you know, done your history, demeanor, training, background, all that stuff. Asking the table, you know, the connection questions and seeing who pops and goes, oh yeah, I feel that question that you just asked. It's a game in and of itself, and it's really fun. And once you play this, you will have that experience. It's really just a good time. So, like most TTRPGs, there are stats here, right? Each playbook is going to start with their own default stats, but at character creation, you get to add a +1 to any stat that you like. Also, you get to shift your balance in any direction you like, but we will get back to that. That is a fun and unique element to this system that we will look into more in depth in just a bit here. Now, we have fatigue and conditions. Much like many other Powered by the Apocalypse games, we have conditions that affect your emotions. Sometimes you get hit, and when you get hit, that makes you angry. And when you get angry, you're less effective at doing certain things. Or maybe you get afraid or insecure. Conditions are tethered to your emotions because this game is about story, and stories are really keyed in on characters' emotions. And I'm sorry, I'm just seeing the cabbage guy, and like that's triggering my emotions because I feel so bad for that dude. Did I just hear a all? Alright. Alright, let's get into balance here. So, balance. Every PC has a balance track, and on your playbook, you'll find each of these 2 poles marked with a principle, an idea about yourself or the world that matters to your character. However, these 2 ideas are in tension for your character. Your character isn't sure how to uphold one principle without denying the other. I like to describe these as 2 unique stats specific to your character's playbook, and when you increase one, you decrease the other. And again, this game is truly about emotions and the inner turmoil of your character, and your character trying to find balance. So when you lean towards one direction, for example, the hammer playbook has care and force. The more forceful you are, the less careful you are, and vice versa. The more careful you are, the less forceful you are. Sometimes you're going to need to be that hammer. Sometimes you're going to need to knock the wall down. But other times, you're going to need to be careful so you don't hurt other people in the process of doing what you do, right? And that's the tension. Sometimes people will goad you into being your worst self. Sometimes people will goad you into being that hammer and tearing down everything. And sometimes you need to stand against people goading you, and that's what this system represents. Now, you'll also notice that there are little diamond shapes in the center there, because that's your center. So your balance can shift back and forth. You can be careful one day and you can be forceful the other. Once you have a moment to recollect yourself, take a deep breath, you go back to center, right? But the more severe thing is, your center can move. And that's when we get into some really interesting territory. Because as it stands, when you start the game, you can always go back to zero. But as the story progresses, maybe your tendency of handling things with force becomes the default. Maybe that starts to become who you are. And so your center moves more and more towards force. And then really interesting things happen when you go too far in one direction. But we'll get there. Next, we have a moment of balance, which is a very cool upgrade that your character can unlock, right? So as your character advances and grows in the system, they're going to be able to take moves from other playbooks or to learn new techniques. We'll get into that. Or you can unlock a moment of balance. A moment of balance is a move your character must unlock through advancement before it can be used, and once you've unlocked it, however, you can use it at any time your current balance is at your center. And what it does is it lets you take over the narrative for a little bit. And it can truly have powerful moments. I personally can't wait to see this in action. Because it's when you really see your players connect with their characters and shine. And they get to GM for a little bit, and as a GM, you get to sit back and watch them express their characters. What more can a GM ask for? It's beautiful. So, there are playbook moves unique to every playbook that really key in on the theme of what that playbook is about. And there are unique features as well that you're going to want to review on your own as you go through these playbooks. Truly, it's really, really fun. One of my favorites is the hammer basically starts off the game having beef with somebody. And they get bonuses to like attacking that person. And they have goals. Like, do you just want to beat up the person that you named, or do you want to like expose them for being a bad guy? Do you want to depose them? Like, what is your aim? Not only is your feature throwing hands, but it's like throwing specific hands. It's like trying to figure out how you want to take down the bad guy. Do you want to do it just by punching, or is there more to it? And I think that that's so cool. I have in my play test, sorry to go on a tangent, but really I've had some really amazing moments with the system. In my play test, I had someone who was part of the Southern Water Tribe and the Fire Nation, did Fire Nation things. It wasn't awesome. And instead of beating up the general that commanded it, she did a balance move to really kind of get him to see things from her perspective. And he disavowed the Fire Nation and worked to fix the village that he destroyed. This game isn't just about punching till somebody's HP is 0, because there is no HP. It's not just punching your way out of things. It's Avatar. Avatar has a lot of episodes where the conflict is solved by talking, by bonding, by being emotional, by being vulnerable, or sometimes you just gotta punch somebody in the face with a fireball. It's whatever you want, but the options are there, and the system is really great at expressing that. So, speaking of punching people in the face, let's get into combat techniques. So, combat techniques are, how do I describe this? There is a system in this game, right, where you can learn new techniques. For example, pressure points, lightning redirecting, things like that. There is a system in the game that's not too heavily in depth in the quick start guide, to be honest, to be fair, but what it does is it allows GMs to create masters all over the world that have unique skills to teach your player characters. And the reason that I love this feature is because there's so much story to be told in just one feature. Watch, I'll show you. One quest is to find a master, right? The next quest is to convince that master to teach you a skill. The next quest is the master teaching you that skill and you trying to learn it. Then there's going out in the world and practicing that skill until you master it. When you pick up a new combat technique, it's going to start off at the status of practice, which means you can pull it off in combat. It's just not easy. It gets a little bit easier once it becomes the status of learned, but when it becomes mastered, that's when you can just start slinging it around like crazy. And that, again, that's something that is not too explored in depth in the quick start guide. They allude to it a lot, and it's going to be really awesome. Just one more reason that if you haven't backed this system already, which I doubt that you have it because it's kind of exploding right now, but if you have it, that is one more reason to do it. Just as a GM, there's so much story that you can tell in just one aspect of this game. It's really cool. At the end of every session, you're going to have growth questions. The players are going to discuss their characters, what they've learned during the course of the episode. There are 3 questions that everybody gets, and then there are questions that are unique to each playbook, right? And for every yes that they answer with, that is a check mark that they get for advancing, right? And once they get a certain amount of advancements, I believe it's 4. I could be mistaken. I need to double check that. Then they get to grow. Essentially, they get to either unlock a moment of balance, get a move from another playbook, increase a stat by +1, or advance a technique that they've learned. Really cool. A lot of options. I dig it. So, looks like we're coming back to the connections there. Remember those connections from earlier? Well, now's the time to fill them out. But first, you have to get to know the other player characters. So you're going to go around the table and introduce your characters, telling us their name, appearance, training, background, demeanor, all that good stuff. Once you've learned more about the other characters, you're going to fill out the connections and link your characters together. Again, one of my favorite parts of this is just linking up characters that sometimes have no business knowing each other. Like you're in the Kyoshi era, and you've got like an airbender, a waterbender, a technology, and a firebender. It's just really fun to build that connection because it's like it's nonsensical, but it's the fun kind of nonsensical that you can only really get at a TTRPG table. And the more you play and the more you learn about the world that you're in, the more fun it becomes. So we've done all the character creation. We've got an idea of our story, our outline. We've done all of the work, right? It's time to play. So how do you play this game? It's pretty simple. Not crunchy at all. It's just telling a story. It's just GM giving you the world you're in, the situation you're in, and you can respond to that world as a player, right? You've got your playbook with your own unique moves that you can do, but there are basic moves that everyone can do. And there are resources that you have to expend to do certain things. So let's get into that, shall we? On page 15 here, we have moves and fatigue. Let's get into fatigue first. Your fatigue track has 5 spaces on it. When you mark fatigue, it represents getting physically, mentally, and emotionally tired, stressed, or worn down. Once you've marked all 5, you're on the verge of collapsing or passing out. Nearly everything risky you do is difficult and might put you out of action. If you've marked all 5 fatigue boxes, then any time a game rules gives you the choice between marking fatigue or doing something else, you have to do that other thing. If it says mark fatigue, then since you have no boxes left to check, you mark a condition instead. And then we'll tell you what happens when you have marked all of your conditions. If that's happening to you, that's rough, buddy. I told you there was going to be more Avatar jokes. God, I'm so sorry y'all have to sit through this. So, how do you get less fatigued? Well, you can always comfort and support other PCs, and they can comfort and support you. There's getting rest, sleeping. A night's rest is a covered stable or a barn, and you get -4 fatigue. Sleeping rough gives you -3 fatigue. A night's rest at a comfortable place gives you back all 5 fatigue, and a week's rest pretty much anywhere, even in the wilderness, clears all 5 fatigue. All right. You also need food and water to get the benefit of rest as well. It's not the kind of thing you need to keep careful track of, but if it plays a part of the story element, then keep that in mind. So, moving on down to page 16, we have conditions. A condition is an emotional state which leaves you uncomfortable and vulnerable. Every character has 5 conditions they can mark when something particularly stressful happens to them. Afraid, angry, foolish, guilty, and insecure. If you don't have a condition marked, you might still feel that emotion, but it won't last long, or it's not intense enough to affect your actions. And if a condition is marked, then it really worries you. The kind of thing you might feel upset about for days or even weeks. I do love that the GM can mark those conditions on you, or you can mark those conditions on yourself. Like, that is just, it's fun. It's a great way to let people know that I am not in a good place right now. And that opens up your character for really emotional beats. You know, you can play to it. Like, I've marked angry on my sheet because of blah, blah, blah. Well, now the players at the table and the GM can take note of that, and that can guide the story, because playing this game is just telling a story. And I want to keep reiterating that, because I know that there are going to be a lot of people that are new to TTRPG because of this system, and you've never played any sort of TTRPG, and you see dice and it might get daunting, and it might seem like there are all these statuses and conditions and all balance, and what even is combat technique. at the end of the day, relax. It's just tell the story with your friends. In the world of Avatar, you're gonna be all right. So, let's get back into these conditions. How should your character act when they're afraid or insecure? Well, that's entirely up to you. An angry Kiyoshi and an angry Aang are very, very different creatures. And might I dare say that I would have a preference on which one I have to deal with. Not dealing with an angry Kiyoshi, I ain't got that in me. The one thing predefined about each condition is how it affects specific moves you make, giving you a -2 penalty on those rolls as long as you're, well, let's say you're afraid. Then you're going to get -2 to intimidate or call someone out. You can't punk somebody if you're scared. Or you can, it's just real difficult. It's just like, man, don't make me fight you, but also I can't make direct eye contact with you because I am terrified. Or angry. Take -2 to comfort and support or assess the situation, because have you tried to comfort and support somebody when you're angry? It's not a good look. Or you feel foolish, so you take -2 to trick or resist shifting your balance. Or you feel guilty, so you take -2 to pushing your luck and denying a call out. Or you feel insecure, so you take -2 to plead or rely on skills or training. That's all the conditions are, really. You can play them up however you like, but that's the mechanical effect. And if you've already marked all 5 conditions and you must mark another, you're taken out. You're unconscious. You're injured, you're distraught, you're trapped. Your actions can't trigger moves or affect the scene anymore. You are donezo. You are at the mercy of the other creatures in the scene and might be disarmed, captured, or otherwise limited. It's not until after the scene ends that you recover. After you've had some time off or your opposition frees you, when you recover, clear all marked fatigue, but keep all the conditions marked because you've had a rough time. So how do you clear conditions other than being completely knocked out? Well, first off, don't get knocked out. That's no bueno. But here's how we can get rid of those conditions. If you're afraid, you can simply run away from danger or difficulty. You might have some explaining to do, but you get rid of that condition. Give and take. If you're feeling angry, break something important or put others in danger. If you're feeling foolish, take a foolhardy action without talking to your companions. If you're feeling guilty, make a personal sacrifice to absolve yourself of guilt. And if you're feeling insecure, offer aid or support to someone competent. See? Told you. It's all storytelling. Yes, there are numbers attached to this stuff, but at the end of the day, it's just, what would your character do in the most pure and honest sense of the phrase? What would your character do in this moment? If they're angry, let them be angry and do something angry people do. If they're afraid, really take that in and be afraid. That's how we tell good stories. So, let's get back into the ballots thing, right? Because that is a key, unique feature of this system. Each principle of ballots reflects a specific worldview manifesting as part philosophy and part feeling. For the example here, they have forgiveness versus action. So let's take a look at a scenario. One of them is right. Where a character might be pushed into either forgiving or acting on action, right? If there's a bandit that broke a sacred scroll, you might want to punch him in the face. That's certainly action. Or do you take the high road and forgive them? These are the crossroads. These are the moments where you define who you are in the world of Avatar. And there are mechanics that help establish and embellish that. And that's something that I highly recommend reading up on. because it's one of the more fun parts of the game. I've already given you the basic rundown of how your center is where you return to. Your center is home. So if you have a tendency to forgive, let's say you have a +1 for forgiveness. So you go ahead and you punch the guy in the face. You'll shift your balance towards action, but at the end of the day, you can take a moment to reflect on what you did and you're back to your forgiving ways. But if you go too far, then you might shift your center. And that changes who you are exponentially as a character. Not mechanic-wise, but just storytelling-wise. It's a really cool mechanic to help you define who you are, right? So really take a look into that. And there are moves that go alongside it. Let's give a brief summary of the moves. You can resist shifting your balance. This is going to be a move which you resist an NPC shifting your balance. And if an NPC tries to tip your balance and you go along with it, you can shift the way they want you to. If not, then your resistance triggers this move. Essentially, that's hey, maybe you should be less forgiving and punch more people in the face. You know, that's a bad guy going, has forgiveness really been working for you? You know, this bandit just took a sacred scroll from you and you have been getting bullied and beat up your entire adventure. Maybe I'm not the bad guy. Maybe I'm just the guy that's no longer being pushed around. Maybe that's something you might want to consider. That's not a terrible sales pitch from the bad guy, or not the bad guy, but just the NPC that's on the other side of the conflict. Maybe your character hears the wisdom in their words and decides, if I punch that bandit in the face before he took my scroll, I wouldn't be out of the scroll. Maybe forgiveness isn't the right way. Maybe action is. That's what it looks like if your character decides not to resist. But if your character does choose to resist and goes, no, yes, I lost the scroll, but forgiveness is still the greater principle to me and my life. That's when they stand up and they resist. Now, there are some mechanics that go along with this as well. So when you resist an NPC shifting your balance, you're gonna roll, and on a hit, you successfully maintain your current balance in spite of their words or deeds. And you get options to choose from to show how you are going to exhibit that. But if you miss, if you roll low, they know just what to say to throw you off balance. So they're gonna mark a condition, and the GM is going to shift your balance twice. Sometimes bad guy has a point. And that's what this mechanic plays into. It's pretty fun. What else can we do with balance? Well, let's take a look. You can live up to your principle. This is a move for calling upon the strength of your convictions to boost you. PCs use it when they take an action in line with one of their principles, and they call on that belief to help. Now, we haven't really gone through basic moves, but let me explain really simply how they work before we really get in depth. If you want to use rely on skills and training to do some bending, that is a move that uses focus. Let's say your character's not too focused, but it's really important that they get this move off. Well, instead of rolling with focus, the focus stat, you can instead roll with one of your principles instead. Let's say we go back to our example of the NPC talking to the idealist, telling them that forgiveness maybe is not the way to go. Well, you can use your conviction, your belief, and forgiveness instead of focus to rely on skills and training. It's a wonderful display of not only your character resisting the influence of somebody else, but showing where the bending is coming from. Because like I said at the very beginning of this, bending is a part of, or your training, whatever you choose to do, is a part of who your character is. And sometimes you rely on the training that you've done, or sometimes it's just straight from the heart. And that's what this helps you show. So next we have calling someone out. This is a move for getting someone else to act according to their principle, to actually live up to that belief. You know how my bad guy is trying to get my idealist to stop being so forgiving? This is that move. This is calling somebody out and going, hey, your principles aren't really principling right now. Why did I say that? No, it's just trying to get them to see things your way, and maybe realizing that their worldview could use an adjustment. Next, we have losing your balance. See, this is where we get into the fun territory. So let's say that your balance has gone all the way in one direction, right? You're at a +3 on action and somebody pushes you over the edge. What does that look like? Well, if you are familiar with Avatar: The Last Airbender, then you know that we have seen somebody who has lost their balance completely. Azula lost her balance and went way too far on one side of the spectrum than the other, and you could see it affect her, right? When you take an action, let's see, when, there we go. If your balance shifts to the end of the track and then would shift past the end of the track, you lose your balance. You obsess over that principle to a degree that's not healthy for you or anyone around you. At that point, you can choose to give in and submit to your opposition, lose control of yourself in a destructive and harmful way, or take an extreme action in line with the principle and then flee. Afterward, when you've had some time to recover and recenter yourself, re-enter play with all your conditions of fatigue clear and your center shifted one step towards the principle you exceeded. Reset your balance to your new center. I think it's pretty clear which option Azula chose. She lost control of herself in a destructive and harmful way, right? So. Justice for my girl Azula. She deserved better. Anyway, let's get into the basic moves so you know how to play this game. You have the option to plead. Pleading is where you reach out to an NPC who cares what you think, and depending on how well you roll, they will either help you right now, or they'll go, I want to help you, but I need a few things. Next, there is intimidate, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's where you essentially punk somebody into either fighting you, not fighting you, backing down, but like trying to save face by keep and watch, or they just run to get back up. Then there is my favorite as a player and least favorite as a GM, with just tricking somebody. When you trick someone, they can either stumble, which means that you get a +1 forward when acting against them. +1 forward just means that when you're acting against them, you get to get a +1 on whatever role you're doing in opposition to them. Or they act foolishly and the GM tells you what additional opportunity that gives you, or they overcommit and are deceived for some time. That's the one. That's the one that's caused me some interesting times as a GM. Then there is relying on your skills or skills and training. When you rely on your skill and training to overcome an obstacle, you gain new insight or perform a familiar custom. You roll with focus, and depending on what you roll, you succeed, but there might be some caveats to exactly what happens when you succeed. Next, we have pushing your luck. When you push your luck in a risky situation, you say what you want to do, you roll with passion, and it's going to cost you, but depending on how you roll, it'll either cost you and you get the job done, or it'll cost you, you get the job done, and something else beneficial happens to, for, with, or about you. Then you have assessing the situation, which is the vibe check. You roll with creativity, and on a 7 or 9, you get to ask one of the questions that are listed in the quick start guide, or on a 10 plus, you get to ask 2 of those questions. Questions being, what here can I use to blank? Who or what here is the biggest threat? What should I be on the lookout for? What's my best way in, out, or through? Or who or what is in the greatest danger? And finally, there is comfort and support, which is my favorite basic move. When you comfort or support someone, you're going to roll with harmony, and on a hit, they decide if they open up to you. If they don't, you get to you have to mark a condition, but you get a +1 for it acting against them. But if they do open up, you get to ask them a question. On a 10 plus, they get to ask you a question back, and if you both answer honestly, or whoever answers honestly gets to remove a condition and remove a condition or to fatigue. This move can really open up some like heart-wrenching scenes. Trust me, I've seen it. It has caused some waterworks. Now, let's get into combat. And the first thing I like to explain to people is that this combat is not like your traditional TTRPG combat. This isn't 2 groups stand and sling stuff at each other until one person's knocked out. Again, this is all about story. So combat can happen in quick spurts. Emotions ramp up and people start punching each other until they ramp down. Like it can go for a while, or it can be 1 round, okay? So that's the key thing to know about combat, is that it is much different than the combat that you've experienced with other TTRPGs. There are combat moves to consider. There are 3 stances, basically. You have your defend and maneuver stance, you have your advance and attack stance, and you have your evade and observe stance. And we're on page 21 here, where we're going through these techniques. And essentially, the way this works is every character, including NPCs, has access to basic techniques. In general, defend and maneuver techniques tend to focus on standing strong and seeking advantage in the field, while advance and attack techniques inflict conditions and press your assault, and evade and observe techniques adjust, balance, and look for new opportunities. All right? So what happens is, at the beginning of combat, everybody is going to pick a stance and a move, and then you're going to reveal in order of defend and maneuver goes first, advance and attack goes second, and evade and observe goes third, right? And there are these really cool cards that are going to be included in the Kickstarter that has the stance and the moves, so you just kind of reveal it all at the same time. It's really dope. And then you describe what happens. You choose the moves you do, and those are going to be in the quick start guide. And depending on what you do, there are statuses that can really affect where the story goes. There's the Doom status. You're in grave danger, so you mark 1 fatigue. There's Empowered. Your abilities are naturally stronger here. So like, let's say you're a firebender, right? And you just fill up the room with fire. I, as a GM, would say, you know what? You are surrounded by flames. You are empowered right now. Go in, boo-boo, and just start swinging. Then there's Favored. You're boosted by circumstance, and you get to choose an additional basic or master technique in the next exchange, even on a miss. There's Impaired. You're slowed or off balance. Let's say you're a waterbender and you cover the ground in ice. Well, guess what? You've just impaired the bad guy. You can inspire people in combat. You're ready to stand for something. Clear inspire to shift your balance towards a principle of your choice. There's trapped if you're an earthbender and you just want to put somebody in a rock cocoon. And then there's stun. You caught someone off guard and they can't act or respond for a few seconds until they steady themselves. There's a really good and in-depth example of how combat functions in this quick start guide, and I highly recommend reading it reading it and really getting it, because it offers a lot of freedom for the GM. You get to choose how the statuses work when they come into play. There are some moves that trigger it, but not all moves do. And also, don't forget, you get to create masters who have techniques throughout the world. So you can create a move that inflicts one of these statuses. There's just so much here for GMs to use to continue to tell stories and empower their players. Really read through the combat, because it is very different from your standard TTRPG combat, in the sense that it was designed with story in mind first, just like everything in this game is. So there's also the help move. I know in TTRPGs, I love when my character can help another player and get them over that threshold that they need for success, and this system has it. You can take the help a companion basic move after they roll, so you can see that they failed first and choose to help them. Now, personally, as a GM, I am insistent that you tell me what that looks like, how that plays out. I want you to tell the story of how your character makes it happen. And I have had really creative players who have mixed bending in ways that I did not expect. I had a earthbender kick a rock into the air. The firebender exploded the rock, and then the airbender swirled the dust around and basically created like a fog cloud grenade shrapnel thing. It was really awesome, and it's the kind of creativity that this game fosters. As far as I can tell, I'm pretty certain on this, there is no limit to how many people can help. So you can really get some cool team combos in Avenger style. I think it's really dope. Now, just to be clear on how bending functions in this game, because I know there may be some people that are still a little bit confused on how this all comes together. There is no one way to bend. There is no one move or skill that's tethered to your bending at all, right? Remember I told you about all the basic moves: pleading, intimidating, tricking, relying on skills and training, assessing a situation, pushing your luck, and comforting, supporting someone? All of it can be expressed through bending. How about you comfort and support someone as a waterbender by doing some healing, which would explain removing the 2 fatigue or the condition? How about intimidating somebody by giving a powerful display of your fire bending? How about tricking somebody by sending a gust of air to continuously close a door that they opened, making them think somebody's inside? How about pleading with somebody by offering to build a bridge with your earthbending in return for assistance from the village mayor? There are infinite ways to express your bending. The only limit is your imagination. So get creative, think outside the box, and have fun. Are there any non-bending playbooks? So bending isn't tied to playbooks, rather it is the training that you choose. So if you choose to be, let's say, a hammer, you can be a hammer that uses weapons instead. Or you can be a hammer that uses technology instead. Or you can be a hammer that is a firebender. So it really depends on the training that you select at the beginning of character creation. And I do believe that the rest of this is pretty much just running through the system. So I would love to open up for a few questions if we have any questions here. The pro element bending matches are a good way to play. I have had a few scenarios set in the pro bending world, or pro bending scene. I truly love it. I also want to mention in the quick start guide, there are pre-made characters, there are pre-made NPCs, and there are rule sets for how NPCs function. Essentially, just to give you a quick description of it, the more balanced, the more if their importance as an NPC is really placed on where they are on the balance scale. If they have a +1 to one of their principles, they're like a minor NPC. If they have a +2, they're more important, and if they have a +3, they're major. Were there any other questions that anyone had? Just want to make sure that we're not only taking you through this guide, but also shedding some lights on anything that anyone was concerned about with this system, or anything that anything anybody wanted to know. Oh, and we're offering to run. Are we offering to run the trailer again? Because that is a dope trailer. Oh, here we go.
Air, water, earth, fire.
Swear to God, it's the dopest opening ever.
The elements that
Guts, I can
bind
absolutely
our
answer
world
that.
together are the same that break us apart.
Low-key, this is my first time seeing this trailer too. I specifically made myself not watch it so I could watch it here.
Generations, they have been the instruments of positive and negative. Peace.
I love me one whole Iroh.
Both balance and imbalance. No matter if you lived in the yesteryears of Avatar Roku,
Boo, Roku, boo.
Avatar Aang, or the days
Damn,
of
dang, they just skipped my girl Kyoshi?
yet to come. The pursuit of balance is not for the Avatar alone. No, or even just the benders of our world.
There's
No matter
Kyoshi.
if you were born to master an element, or weaponry, or technology, or perhaps the simple brewing of fine tea. No
Love me
obstacle
one whole
can be
Iroh.
overcome without a journey to discover one's self. And only a fool travels alone. So walk this path together and find your balance. A great adventure.
Dragon Dance. Dragon Dance. Oh, they didn't show it. Oh my God, this is so dope. Needs more Kyoshi though. That's my only note. I just want oops on Kyoshi. All right. There was a question that was asked. which is, can I go over the difference between Powered by the Apocalypse and more like D20 systems? And I can absolutely explain that. Powered by the Apocalypse systems function with storytelling being first and foremost in the design, whereas the mechanics are key in traditional D20 systems. For example, a D20 system would have different move sets for different bending things that you might be able to do. I want you to think of like your traditional like fireball, right? Fireball has a very specific radius, a very specific level required to cast it, material components, all that good stuff. Whereas if you want to do a fireball in a Powered by the Apocalypse system, you would say, I want to shoot a fireball out of my hands, and then you would find a basic move that represents what you're trying to do, and then you would roll it. There is no assigned damage. There is no saves against it. The level of success is completely determined by your role in doing what you said you wanted to do. So if you fail at it, you still do it, but it probably backfires in a way where your GM can use it to create a new story element. If you're only partially successful, then it goes off how you intended for it to go off, but there will be some consequence to it. And if you roll high enough, then it goes specifically how you want, and the GM shows you how the world reacts to that. So that's essentially the difference between a D20 system versus a Powered by the Apocalypse system. And personally, I think Avatar fits much better into a Powered by the Apocalypse system because, again, I don't know about you, but I'm here for the story. Fight back against the avatars who always mess up your store cabbage pit. Noir, what's some Kiyoshi cosplay? Do you want me to cosplay as Kiyoshi? Cause I have neither the height or confidence. Alright, if this Kickstarter, and I want y'all on record, if this Kickstarter gets to 1 million, Magpie, back me up on this, I hope. I will dress up as Kiyoshi. You hear me? If this Kickstarter gets to 1 million and Magpie and Viacom let me, I will dress up and run a one-shot as Kiyoshi. Let's go. Things I immediately regret saying. Wait, where's the Kickstarter now? Maybe I should raise that. See, this is why I shouldn't be allowed to do stuff like this. I get wild brazy at the mouth and then end up having to dress up as Kiyoshi. But yeah, that's essentially the system, y'all. I really, oh no, we're halfway there. Living on a prayer. I'm raising that to be 1.5 mil. 1.5 mil. And then well, also I have to get permission from Magpie and Viacom, so good luck on that one. I heard 1 mil. I heard 1.5. Okay. So before we wrap up here, folks, I just wanted to make sure that were there any other questions that we had in regard to this system, because I have been in it for a while. I truly do love it, and I think that you're going to love it too. I mean, it doesn't get any better for us Avatar fans. I can tell you firsthand that the developers, the designers, the playtesters, everybody who had a hand in making this system cared. And that's the key to making something like this great. everybody cares. We understand the responsibility that comes with the brand. Avatar isn't just anything. It's something that means a lot to a lot of people. I was at a really messed up point in my life when Avatar came out, and it's one of the things that got me through. Like seeing a redemption arc for somebody like Zuko, that mattered. The characters here matter. The stories here matter. And everybody who took part in this, Brendan Conway, James Mendez, Marissa Kelly, Mark Diaz Truman, everybody cared. I care, and you should care. And I hope that when you get this game in your hands, you can feel that. Is it faster to defeat a foe through making them lose their balance than getting their fatigue or conditions to run out? In my personal experience, it depends on the disposition of the bad guy at the start of the story. Minor bad guys, ones that are only slightly inconvenienced by what you're doing, yeah, you can absolutely. I mean, if you talk to them and you try to understand them as a person, you can absolutely shift that balance over and potentially get a good guy on your side, or get somebody on your side. What's it called? The friendship no jutsu. You can absolutely pull that off. But sometimes it's harder to do that, and then you also have to weigh whether it's worth it, because it won't always work the first time. And if you let the bad guy go and they're pondering whether they're wrong or not, you get the Zuko situation where it took a while for Zuko to flip. And the whole time he was considering flipping, he was still being a pain in Aang's butt. But at the end of the day, it was worth the extra effort to flip Zuko. Or at least I think so. So, that really depends on your players, how you present the NPC in question. Because if they take a major sacrifice, that to me, that just kind of bumps the progression up. It makes it easier for them. But if it's just like, they're just like, hey, we should be friends, and not really acting on it, then it's going to take much longer. So I guess my answer to you is it's circumstantial. But that's the fun of it. Because it's a complex story. There is no easy answer. With traditional D20 systems, it's like, is it easier to lockpick the door or to blow it down? Well, we know the DC for the lockpick, and we know how many health points that the door has. So figuring out which way to go is strictly mathematical and really doesn't have anything to do with how we feel. There is none of that here. So it's really about, do you feel like it's worth it to get this guy to be on your side, or is it just easier to punch him in the face till he stops moving? I can't decide that for you. If you do, I'm going to pass to you the next time you're here. Sorry, that sneeze has been like dancing in the back of my nose this entire time. Cabbage love. Okay, so I am here but by the grace of Magpie and Weave the Tail and Viacom, so I should not bite the hand that feeds me. But I'm gonna, just a little bit. I'm kidding, it's only playful, but listen. At one point, there is a playbook called The Successor. And The Successor is all about being from a lineage, right? Like from a powerful lineage, like a gang family or like a dynasty or something like that. And you get to define how your family got its money and what they're venturing into next. And one of the another part of that playbook is you get to use your family resources, right? One of the resources that you could have gotten way early on in one of the playtests was vegetables and livestock, and it has been removed. And that's the one thing I'm mad about, because during one of our playtests, we had somebody play the son of the Cabbage Man, and I have never seen someone wreak so much havoc. It was perfect. Justice for vegetables and livestock. I want it back. I'm just kidding. Nothing but love for everybody involved in the playtest. I just love giving everybody guff for that. Was there another question? My former Dali trainer narrowly escaped his mind. Yeah. All right. Well, if there are no further questions, well, why can I hear the exasperated pauses? Yeah, you can. That cabbage dude, I feel so bad for him. I feel so bad for him. But anyway, if there's nothing further, we're gonna call it there. Thank you all so much for taking the time to review this playbook with me and to check out this really cool system. I promise you, it's worth a look. If you're not familiar with TTRPGs, if you're not familiar with Avatar, or if you're not familiar with either, this is a great entry into an amazing hobby with an amazing community full of amazing people. And it's worth the try. Highly recommend going and watching Avatar wherever you can see it, and playing this game wherever you can find it. And if you have any questions, you can find me on Twitter as the Noir Enigma, and I'll do my best to try and shepherd you through this journey of telling a story all on your own. But that's it. That's been the review. Thank you for your time. Thank you to Weave the Tale for having me. Thank you to Magpie and Viacom for coming out with this amazing system. And most importantly, thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Air, water, earth, fire. Our world together are the same that break us apart. Across eras and generations, they have been the instruments of positive and negative, peace and chaos, both balance and imbalance. No matter if you lived in the yesteryears of Avatar Roku, the age of Avatar Aang, or the days of legends yet to come. The pursuit of balance is not for the Avatar alone. No, or even just the benders of our world. No matter if you were born to master an element, or weaponry, or technology, or perhaps the simple brewing of fine tea. No obstacle can be overcome without a journey to discover one's self. And only a fool travels alone. So walk this path together and find your balance. A great adventure awaits.